Supporting Durham's neighborhoods and the health and well-being of the people who live in them is the goal of many of our programs, services, and initiatives. It's also where the Community Engagement Division of our Neighborhood Improvement Services Department comes in. This division works to improve the quality of life for people who live, work, and play in Durham's neighborhoods, resulting in positive outcomes for many of us on a daily basis. Welcome to City Life. I'm Beverly Thompson. Joining me to talk about the value of good community engagement is Laura Biediger. We also have with us Angel Isette Dozier. She's the president of Be Connected Durham, an important partner in the city's work. Welcome to you both, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Laura, what does the Community Engagement Division of NIS do?
Community Engagement Division exists in the city's Neighborhood Improvement Services Department. There are about 8 city staff, and our focus is really building relationships with community members. We help connect them to the city. When the city needs to contact community members, we're able to help that way. If community members are trying to reach the city, we can make that connection. And we also really work to help build organization and connections within communities also.
So, Laura, I know one of the division's most important projects over the past few years has been the development and implementation of the Equitable Community Engagement Blueprint. What is the blueprint and why was it needed?
The blueprint is a document that we created about almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, in response to a few residents coming to a city council meeting and asking and really demanding city council to do a better job of engagement, specifically around the Beltline project. Whenever the city makes decisions and does projects, it can have really positive impacts, but sometimes if we're not careful, it can have negative impacts. And that's where engagement comes in. It's really important to make sure that we're engaging residents to make sure that we see all sides of what's happening and can do our best to mitigate any harm. So the residents came to a city council meeting and asked for a better form of engagement. That assignment came to our team. We did research internationally and then also worked with several community members to develop the blueprint, which is really a lot of high-level principles in how we think engagement should be. It's going to be done equitably in the city.
Mm-hmm. So, Angel, it's my understanding that you were one of the residents who was asking for changes in the way that the city connects with the community. Why did you feel so strongly that this type of change was needed?
I felt really strongly about this type of change because I was familiar with the Atlanta Beltline project. It's a project that is the Durham Beltline project is patterned after. And I was really concerned that there would be a repeat of the displacement that happened during the city of Durham's urban renewal plan in terms of people like being displaced and also suffering for decades afterwards as a result through the Hayti community. I wanted to engage my neighbors around the idea of the Beltline project. I love I love greenways and I love walkable cities, but I also wanted to be sure that our residents, the people who were going to be directly impacted by the Durham Beltline project, have an opportunity to understand what this project is, how it would impact them. And I felt like that was the responsibility of us, community people who are, here, figuring out ways just to be human beings every day. I felt like it was important for us to take on that responsibility because this is how we take care of each other in general here on the Fayetteville Street corridor and in communities in general that I've been a part of. We take care of each other in this way by sharing the information and finding ways to survive and thrive when there may not be access to information or resources.
That is so important. So, Laura, your focus on working with community partners is just one example of how you're implementing the Equitable Community Engagement Blueprint. What is the Community Partners Program and what areas of the city does it actually focus on?
Sure. The community partners come out of the piece of the blueprint that says that to do really good engagement, we really need to partner with the community. And by partnering with the community, we need to resource and really fund them. And so that means like significantly more money than we're normally used to giving to a community. So as we looked at how to implement that within the city, we realized we have to do a contract level amount of funding, not just small stipends here and there. So over the past 3 years, we've worked with several community partners. This year, we are working with 6 community partners. We have the Bragtown Community Association, the Fayetteville Street Corridor Fellows, which Angel is a part of. The Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, Inc. is working in the Wellens Village and Holloway Street area. And our new partners are the West End Lion Park Legacy Project, a group that is working with most of the DHA communities in the north and east part of the city. That group's called GRAB, which stands for Grinding, Reaching, Achieving, and Balling. And then the 6th group is focused especially on Latinx communities, and they are kind of centered out of the Club Boulevard area. That project is called Sembrando Raíces, and they are working through the DPS Foundation.
So I know you mentioned Angel's group, Be Connected Durham, as one of those community partners. So Angel, tell us a little bit about your group, its purpose, and just the goal of why you exist.
Sure. So Be Connected Durham is a community organization centered in a particular initiative, and that initiative was to engage people equitably. We target audiences in order to blend them around similar interests, common interests. So our events that we curate, and also the services, the curatorial and marketing communication services that we provide at Be Connected are designed to connect audiences. They also address disparities. The events always address a disparity or is connected to some type of socio-political campaign. And then we get people together and we bridge the understanding that each party has. And then as a result, bridge the access gaps that exist. And so we do this through the arts, using all forms of the arts, ideals about culture, theories about culture, and then political advocacy, because these are what we believe to be the vehicle for change. These are the things that drive change. If everybody has access to the information first, the education first, then people can make the decisions that they need to make that next move toward change. So the Fayetteville Street Corridor Fellowship is one project made up of Be Connected Durham, and it is our community partner project that Laura mentioned. It is a group of 6 residents who live or operate on the Fayetteville Street Corridor, also known as the Hayti community, with the intent to build and sustain a feedback loop between our residents, neighbors, and the city of Durham with regard to infrastructure, transportation, the various things that make up a thriving and vibrant community. And as we all know, these are things that impact public engagement, whether or not people have access to public engagement, or they know how to navigate the website, the city's website, to be a part of some of the city council meetings, or even with the county in terms of the county commissioner meetings, ways in which you can have your voice heard and follow those steps to affect change. Each person, it was important for each person on this project to have a connection, an authentic connection to the Fayetteville Street Corridor, because this is where people are figuring out how to make a way out of no way every day. And we consider that the creative genius that has us in all within these systems and the creative genius that established civilization in the first place. It's the innovation by necessity. And we wanted to be able to tap into that creative genius because, yes, our neighbors, people that are considered marginalized, are people who come up with ways to survive and oftentimes thrive with little or no access to resources. And we thought that is exactly what we need in order to contribute to this feedback loop between the city. These are the people who have the answers because they're solving these problems every day without the resources.
Right. But Laura, I know one of the ways that you all have used partners like Be Connected Durham was through your work with the Go Durham Better Bus Project. Tell us a little bit about that project as an example as well.
Sure. Well, I didn't mention this earlier, but just to let you know how the community partners are funded. Our first year, we received funding from the city's general fund. And the last 2 years, we received funding from the transportation department. The transportation director, Sean Egan, has been a real supporter of equitable community engagement and community partners. From when he first came to the city from DC, he recognized what we're trying to build with the community partners, really building strong community infrastructure. And so he was very supportive from the beginning. So the past 2 years have been funded through the transportation department, and we get lots of information. So the thing is, or with equitable community engagement, we're really trying to move from project-centered engagement to community-centered engagement, but still the way our budgets work, budgets still work around projects. So the past couple of years, we've worked especially on the Go Durham Better Bus Project. And that is really 5 different projects within one of looking at many different ways of improving buses. First, how you're getting to the bus, is there a sidewalk? Is there a sidewalk that you're able to maneuver? What are the crosswalk situations? Once you get there, what's it like while you're waiting for the bus? Once you get on the bus, how quickly is the bus able to move through traffic? So it's really kind of all those experiences that if you are dependent on the bus could hinder you from getting to your job on time. And if you don't ride the bus, it might be for some of those same reasons where it's just not convenient for you and you end up taking the car. So the community partners share a lot of information with us about what's going on the ground, but really the first things that we're looking for and start conversations around are bus access. Talk
about creating a great understanding. So Angel, how did your organization lead engagement efforts for this particular project on the Fayetteville Street corridor?
Yeah, so we led engagement really starting with the alignment with the Durham Public Schools meal schedule that was distributed in March of 2020, which is when we started this work because we were under the shelter in place mandate, and we were concerned about how is everybody eating? How are people getting, food and the other resources that they need during this shelter in place? How is this going to work? So we saw the schedule, the feeding schedule that Durham Public Schools had put out. We made a connection with them, and then we did the research to find out what food sovereignty programs, what food sharing programs are happening right here on the Fayetteville Street corridor. And we came to find that there was 2 initiatives that actually stretch between the places that we're looking to work. One place was the Chicken Hut, a business that's been running here for over 50 years in Durham, and New Visions of Africa, another business that used to be a soul food restaurant, operating for more than 50 years in the city of Durham as well. And so we talked with both owners or representatives from both businesses, because they both provided free meals to people during the week to ensure that everybody was eating. And so we called our initiative Everybody Eats, which is a play on equitable engagement, because we know that if everybody is eating, then everybody has the tools that they need to achieve equity. It's a basic human need, and we want to ensure that first, everybody is eating. So we work with New Visions of Africa and the Chicken Hut to continue the engagement. Our research style is to ask people to share their stories with us. It's qualitative data that we take and we provide feedback and crunch the numbers. We turn that data into quantitative data so that we can say, hey, City of Durham, about 80% of the people that we talked to directly on the Fayetteville Street corridor said this, that, for example, that in order for them to keep certain benefits, they have to keep working. And when they try to take the bus, that's not necessarily reliable at the time, that they are taking Uber and Lyft to work, which costs about $15 one way. That was feedback that we took to the city, and we're able to use that to influence the Better Bus Project survey results, because we were able to go back to our neighbors at the Chicken Hut and New Visions of Africa and say, okay, now here's the survey. We know that you're tired of surveys, or you don't do surveys, but we really need your feedback so that we can affect change pretty quickly, because we have the ear of the city. They are very interested in making sure that your voice is heard, and this is how we're doing it. And we were able to get people to complete that survey. My understanding is it's the first time that as many people, Black and brown people in particular, completed a survey within the city of Durham.
Wow. So much goes on behind the scenes that we just don't know about or hear about.
A lot.
That is so important to how we achieve, our goals.
Right.
So Laura, how are you working to develop or even cultivate future community partners?
There are lots of conversations and lots of listening, so lots of informal ways, but also formally trying to develop more training opportunities. So after our first year with the community partners, again, we're funding at a contract level. So then that means that we have to go through the city's contract and procurement process to be able to provide funding. I never thought that I would learn this much about procurement, and I still probably only know maybe like 25% of what there is to know.
It can be complicated.
It is very complicated. And so we're trying to understand, but then we also want residents to understand, and the residents that we really want to be able to provide this funding to, in some cases, they don't have bank accounts because they haven't had access to, community funds in the past, or they don't have an LLC or a nonprofit or some other organization. So last year, in 2020, we did a small course online. Angel was one of our graduates from that course, where we really just did a deep dive into the procurement process. Our RFPs, which are requests for proposals, it's kind of where all of our city asks around contracts start with, all the way to having one of our city attorneys come on and talk about what contracts are, having risk management come on and talk about insurance requirements, a lot of different pieces. And I think it was really successful and helped us to, encourage and have a few more community partners successfully apply to the next round. But beginning in February of this year through July, Angel and I are co-facilitating a course through North Carolina Central University's Extended Studies program. And it's about 36 class hours, a community partner development course. We'll have 12 to 15 students. And at the end of July, they'll have gone through and really learned about equitable community engagement, learned about community organizing, learned about how to work with the city to gather information on engagement and really inform city projects. And then also learned kind of the business piece of engagement, like contracts, accounting, subcontracting, and things like that.
Such innovative work. I mean, it's just amazing. So, Angela, how does your program actually use the Equitable Community Engagement Blueprint and its work with city affiliated projects?
We use the Equitable Engagement Blueprint to found or to build a foundation for the fellows who participate in the project as we engage residents, because we're looking to also create in residents community ambassadors who will help continue to spread the education about what equity is. And one of the reasons why the Equitable Engagement Blueprint is so important is because it does help to distinguish the difference between equality and equity. Equality talks about, we want the same rights, we want the same rights. But equity talks about having the access to the things that we need. It's more customized to what we all need, and it leads to justice. Equality doesn't necessarily lead to justice. It just means that, if you're getting paid this amount of money, I want to be paid that amount of money too, because I'm a woman. But equity means I have what I need in terms of accessibility. I have what I need in terms of the amount of food or income or housing, the quality of housing, and various things, education, arts, health. I have what I need in order to be able to pursue happiness, just like every other citizen of the United States.
Kind of meeting people where they are, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Laura, how do you determine whether an equitable community engagement project is actually working? I mean, what are some of the successes you've had or some of your lessons learned?
So, I mean, really, it's community members willing to talk to you and come back and bring others back. Community engagement, again, it's really about the long term. It's not just this project or this year, but it's, building a relationship with Angel. So the next time I ask her to weigh in on something, she's not like, nah, I'm done with that. Or I already told you what I thought last time and nothing came of it. You can see successes in community members coming back to you and bringing other people back and referring people to you, because they know that working with you and sharing what they need. It doesn't always, unfortunately, mean that we've delivered on what residents need, because city work takes a long time. But I think there's the piece of you can tell engagement successful when it does lead to relationships and people feel heard. Engagement is really a touchy-feely thing, and when you've been respected in a situation, and even if in a community meeting, the thing that you wanted hasn't ultimately happened, if you felt that people have really heard and listened to you and you were respected in that process as an individual and as a part of the Durham community, then from what I've seen, people come back and they're willing to participate the next time.
Now, I heard you mention building stronger relationships. One series that I love that has actually, I think, built a lot of stronger relationships with communities and individuals even is the Our Community series. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Our Community Story series, it's really one of my favorite times of the month. We get together, normally it's the last Friday of the month, and have on normally 3 to 4 residents from a community within Durham. We started we started in July of 2020 and have focused primarily on Black and African American communities, but are also expanding to other underrepresented communities. In November, we had a group of youth on. In January, we featured the Wheels Fun Park because that's a space that has been really important to community members.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have residents come on and share about their memories of that community.
Mm-hmm.
We started this series as an opportunity for city staff to really learn more about these communities, which is an important part of engagement.
Uh-huh.
But because of COVID and, not really getting a lot of chance to just, eavesdrop on someone else's conversation about their history, it's been a great time for connection, with people who might identify or are part of these communities, and then a really connection and educational moment for people who may not have been a part of these communities.
Yeah. So, Angel, I know the Hayti community has been featured as a part of the series. Why do you think it's so important that these stories be told?
There's such powerful stories of innovation, number one, because the city of Durham really is known not just, regionally and statewide, but nationally as a progressive place to live.
Uh-huh.
People look to the city of Durham for models to, build and to build, to heal, to change, all kinds of things, even when it comes to the arts. And so the stories that come out of Hayti are just powerful and inspirational.
Yeah.
Again, people's creative genius, stories about Nina Simone, James Brown, Dr. Martin Luther King, Zora Neale Hurston being on the Fayetteville Street Corridor or the Hayti community, coming to this community because of how vibrant it was, how connected people were. And in terms of the things that made it a self-contained community, you didn't necessarily have to step outside of Hayti to get what you needed. There was somebody who, just like in Walltown, one of the Walltown community stories, one of the speakers talked about there was somebody just, down the street who had the chickens. So you go there, and there was somebody else who took care of farmland in a way that everybody would go there to get vegetables. Mm-hmm. And then you'd have this person who was a master seamstress over around the corner, and the various things that make up a community. These are the stories of Hayti with a little special spin on it, because, who else can say that both Dr. Martin Luther King and Zora Neale Hurston were in your neighborhood? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it's important for people to know these stories because they are still stories that have not been circulated widely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both so much for talking about this amazing topic. So, Laura, if people want to find out more about the work of your community engagement division, what should they do? Sure.
The website is probably the first place to start. Our website is durhamcommunityengagement.org. Mm-hmm. Our Facebook page is Durham Community Engagement. And those are the main places to start. On our website, you can find more information about our community partners and also our community stories series and our blueprint.
Okay. And Angel, what about Be Connected Durham? How do we find out more?
Sure. So our current website, which will be changed any day now, is beconnecteddurham.com. Each word is spelled out, Be Connected Durham. And that website is going to become beconnecteddurham.org. So just be on the lookout. It will automatically transfer to the new website. Uh-huh. We're also on social media. We use Instagram and Facebook quite a bit to make sure that we get the word out digitally. So Be Connected Durham, spelled out, at Instagram as well as on Facebook.
Thank you both for joining me. I really appreciate it. Well, that does it for City Life. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Watch us on the Durham Television Network and on YouTube. And you can listen to our podcast on iTunes. I'm Beverly Thompson. Thank you again for joining me to learn more about city life in Durham.